The philosophy of freedom. Willie's code of living. Willie Nelson didn't just sing about freedom, he lived by it. His entire life was a quiet rebellion against conformity, authority, and materialism. His personal philosophy could be summed up in a few core beliefs. Live simply, love deeply, work hard, speak truth, respect the earth, fight for the underdog. He never owned a mansion. He lived modestly on his ranch in Luck, Texas. He drove old trucks, wore the same clothes for years, and gave away much of what he earned. When asked why he didn't live like a typical celebrity, he said, "I don't need more than I have. I've got music, family, and a clear conscience." This wasn't humility. It was intentional living, a rejection of excess in favor of meaning in a world obsessed with wealth and status. Willie chose peace over power, connection over control, and in doing so, he became a role model, not just for musicians, but for anyone seeking a more authentic life. The cannabis crusader, a lifelong advocate, Willie Nelson, has been open about his lifelong use of marijuana not as a recreational habit, but as a spiritual, medicinal, and political practice. He first smoked at 17 while working in the fields. He later said, "It helped me see the beauty in things of the sky, the grass, the way people move." In 1977, he was arrested for possession in Alabama. He spent a night in jail and lost all his belongings except Trigger. The experience radicalized him. By the 1980s, he became one of the most visible advocates for marijuana decriminalization. In 2015, he launched Willie's Reserve, a legal cannabis brand that promotes quality and safety, sustainable farming, social justice, reform, expungement of past convictions. He also founded Nelson's Greenbrier Distillery, producing organic spirits and hemp-based products. But more than business, his advocacy is moral. He believes marijuana prohibition has ruined lives, especially among the poor and marginalized. He once said, "Marijuana is not a drug. It's a plant, and it's been healing people since before we had words." To this day, he carries a small bag of weed in his pocket, not for indulgence, but as a symbol of resistance. The Activist, Farm Aid, and the Fight for Family Farmers, 1985. After hearing country singer John Mellencamp speak about the farm crisis, Willie co-founded Farm Aid with Neil Young and Mellencamp at the time. Thousands of family farmers were losing their land due to debt, corporate consolidation, and government policy. Banks were foreclosing. Families were breaking apart. Farm Aid's mission was simple: keep family farmers on their land. Since its inception, Farm Aid has raised over $60 million, held annual benefit concerts featuring hundreds of artists, provided direct grants to struggling farmers, advocated for fair agricultural policies, promoted sustainable local food systems. Willie didn't just lend his name, he led. He toured relentlessly, spoke at rallies, visited farms, and used every interview to educate the public. He often says, "If you eat, you're involved in agriculture." That simple truth became the foundation of his activism. Even at 90+, he still headlines Farm Aid, sitting on a stool with Trigger, singing Whiskey River as the sun sets over the festival grounds. Farm Aid isn't just a concert, it's a movement, and Willie is its heart. The collaborator. Willie and the artists who loved him. Willie Nelson's influence extends far beyond country music because of his collaborative spirit. He never saw music as competition. He saw it as conversation. Over his career, he recorded with artists from every genre. Ray Charles, their duet on Seven Spanish Angels 1984 is a gospel country masterpiece. Julio Iglesias. Their unlikely 1984 duet album brought country and Latin pop together. Snoop Dogg. They smoked together, joked on podcasts, and bonded over shared advocacy. Johnny Cash, Waylon Jennings. Chris Christopherson, the Highwaymen, weren't just a band. They were brothers. Norah Jones, his daughter-in-law and musical partner. with whom he recorded jazz-inflected albums. Dolly Parton, a lifelong friendship and multiple duets, including the classic Pretty Paper. Sheryl Crow, Mavis Staples, Bob Dylan, Steven Tyler, all have performed with him, drawn by his warmth and artistry. What made these collaborations work was Willie's humility. He didn't dominate. He listened. He adapted. He elevated others. As Chris Christopherson once said, Willie doesn't steal the spotlight. He shares it. The writer, beyond songwriting, books, poetry, and thought, Willie Nelson, is not only a songwriter, he is a writer in the fullest sense. He has authored or co-authored over 10 books, blending memoir, philosophy, fiction, and activism. Notable titles include Willie, an autobiography, 1988, a raw, honest account of his life, struggles, and beliefs. The Tao of Willie, a guide to the happiness in your heart, to 005A. Spiritual memoir blending Eastern philosophy, country wisdom, and humor. Roll Me Up and Smoke Me When I Die. Musings from the Road 2012, a collection of reflections, jokes, and life lessons. Me and Sister Bobbie 2020, co-written with his late sister. A touching tribute to their bond. Willie Nelson's Letters to America. 2021, a curated collection of open letters on music, love, and justice. His writing style mirrors his music. Simple, direct, full of soul. He doesn't write to impress. He writes to connect. He also published poetry, often scribbled on napkins or backstage notes. One poem, Homeless, about a man sleeping under a bridge, was read in Congress during a debate on poverty. Willie proved that art isn't confined to one medium. Truth can be sung, spoken, or written, and it's still truth. The teacher, mentoring the next generation, though never a formal teacher. Willie Nelson has mentored countless young artists through example, collaboration, and generosity. He opened doors for Lucas and Micah Nelson, his sons, who carry on his legacy with integrity and innovation. Zach Bryan, who credits Willie with showing him that authenticity matters more than polish. Tyler Childers, who calls him the grandfather of outlaw thought. Charlie Crockett, a modern troubadour, who channels Willie's phrasing and spirit. Margot Price, who says Willie taught her that country music can be both personal and political. He doesn't give lectures. He leads by being himself. At Farm Aid, he invites young artists to perform, often joining them on stage unannounced. At Luck, Texas, he hosts impromptu jam sessions where unknown songwriters sit beside legends. He once told a young singer, "Don't try to sound like me. Just be honest." That's the only thing people remember. And in that moment, he passed the torch. The final reflection. Why he still matters: because truth is timeless. Because a voice that sings from the soul will never fade. Willie Nelson matters because he refused to pretend. He didn't hide his past. He didn't sugarcoat life. He sang it loud, clear, and beautiful. And in doing so, he gave voice to millions who felt invisible. The last word. The man who never left. Willie Nelson may one day die, but he will never really leave. He lives in the strum of trigger on a back porch, the silence before the safe, before the final note of blue eyes crying in the rain, the tears of a fan hearing on the road. Again for the first time. The strength of a farmer who sings his songs while plowing a field. He was not a hero. He was not a saint. He was a man broken, brilliant, and brave enough to sing the truth. And in doing so, he became immortal. So play the record, turn off the lights, close your eyes, and let Willie Nelson sing to you one last time. The studio as sanctuary. Willie's approach to recording. Willie Nelson never treated the recording studio as a place for perfection. To him, It was a sanctuary for truth, where emotion mattered more than polish, and soul outweighed technical precision. Unlike the meticulously layered productions coming out of Nashville in the 1960s and 70s. Willie favored live, in-the-moment performances. He recorded with his band playing together in real time, capturing the energy of a live show imperfections, breaths, and all. He rarely used overdubs. He avoided excessive reverb. He didn't demand multiple takes if the first take had feeling. It was the final take. This philosophy was rooted in his Texas roots, where music was made for dancing, not dissecting. The goal wasn't technical flawlessness, was emotional authenticity. Producer Jerry Wexler, who's worked with him at Atlantic Records, once said, Willie didn't want to make records. He wanted to make confessions. This approach gave his music a raw, immediate quality. You could hear the breath in his voice, the twang of trigger, the subtle swing of the rhythm section. There was no artifice, just sound and soul. Even in his later years, when technology advanced, Willie resisted digital production. He preferred analog tape, warm mics, and natural acoustics. He believed that mistakes could be beautiful, cracked note, a slight delay, a breath between lines, because they proved the song was alive. His recordings weren't manufactured. They were born. The unheard archives, lost recordings, and private moments beyond. His official discography lies a rich archive of unreleased recordings, demos, and private sessions, a sonic diary of a man who lived for music. These include radio station appearances, live performances from Cut, WSM, and other regional stations, where Willie played stripped-down sets with just guitar and harmonica, home recordings, tapes of Willie rehearsing songs with his children, playing old folk tunes, or singing gospel hymns with his sister Bobbie. Outtakes, alternate versions of hits like Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain and On the Road Again, showing how he refined phrasing and timing. Farm Aid rehearsals. Recordings of full band run-throughs before benefit concerts, capturing the tightness of his touring ensemble. One of the most poignant is a private recording from 1982, where Willie sings Angel Flying to Close to the Ground alone in his luck. Texas Cabin, his voice quiet, reflective, almost prayerful. Another rare reel, recorded in 1975, features Willie singing early versions of Red-Headed Stranger songs while driving through West Texas. Narrating the story like a campfire tale, these recordings don't diminish his legacy. They deepen it. They show a man who lived for music, not for fame, but for expression. The influence on women in country music, though best known for love songs. Willie Nelson had a profound impact on female country artists. He didn't just sing to women. He sang with them with respect, chemistry, and emotional honesty. His collaborations with Shelby Lynne, Diana Krall, and Norah Jones on the 2002 album Remember Me, Vol. 1 showcased his ability to blend genres and elevate female voices. He also supported Loretta Lynn, whom he admired for her boldness, Dolly Parton, with whom he recorded duets and shared a deep mutual respect, Miranda Lambert, who has cited him as a model for independence. Willie didn't see women as props. He saw them as equal partners in music, in life, in love. Artists like Reba McEntire, Casey Musgraves, and Mickey Gittin have cited his collaborations as a model for respectful, powerful partnerships. He once said, "A woman's voice is the most honest sound in music," and he lived by those words. The gospel heart, faith, and redemption in his music, though not overtly religious. Willie Nelson had a deep spiritual undercurrent in his music, rooted in the Baptist hymns of his youth and the trials of life. He recorded several gospel albums, including Family Bible 1971A, Tribute to His Grandfather's Faith, The Troublemaker 1976A, collection of spirituals and hymns with a bluesy edge, God's Problem Child 2017 includes He Won't Ever Be Gone, a meditation on mortality and grace. But his faith wasn't confined to gospel records. It infused his secular work, Always on My Mind. A Man Seeking Forgiveness. Yesterday when I was young, a prayer for second chances. Roll me up and smoke me when I die. A humorous, defiant farewell. Willie didn't preach. He questioned. He doubted. He struggled. But he never stopped believing in redemption. He once said, I don't know if I'm saved, but I know I've been forgiven. That tension between sin and grace is at the heart of his music, the cultural symbol. Willie as an American archetype, Willie Nelson became more than a singer. He became a cultural symbol and archetype of the American experience. He embodied the outlaw rejected by Nashville. Reborn on his own terms. The poet who turned pain into poetry. The activist who fought for farmers and freedom. The survivor of poverty. Divorce and health crises, his image braids. Bandana, battered guitar, peers on. T-shirts, murals. And tattoos posters in dive bars and music halls. Statues in museum, exhibits the luck. Texas Ranch remains a pilgrimage site. Fans leave flowers, notes, and small gifts at the gate shrine to a man who turned a private sanctuary into a public celebration. He didn't just represent a genre. He represented a way of life. The voice that crossed genres. Willie Nelson's appeal extends far beyond country music. His songs have been covered by pop artists Linda Ronstadt, Linda Davis, rock bands The Grateful Dead, the Bird soul singers Solomon Burke, Al Green, indie artists Neko Case, Lucinda Williams, jazz musicians Wynton Marsalis. Diana Krall, Crazy Alone has been recorded in over 600 versions. In languages including Spanish, German, and Japanese. His music has been used in films like The Electric Horseman, Honeysuckle Rose, and Inside Llewyn Davis, as well as in TV shows from The Sopranos to Yellowstone. He didn't just cross over. He transcended the myth and the man, separating legend from truth, like all legends. Willie Nelson has been romanticized. He is often portrayed as a carefree hippie or a hardened outlaw. But the truth is more complex. Yes, he smoked marijuana. Yes, he toured relentlessly. Yes, he valued freedom. But he was also compassionate. He advocated for veterans, farmers, and prisoners. Curious, he studied philosophy, literature, and Eastern thought. Funny friends described him as witty and full of life. Regretful. He openly spoke of his mistakes. He wasn't a caricature. He was a man flawed, brilliant, and deeply human. And that's what made his voice so powerful. The final reflection. Why he still matters. Because truth is timeless. Because a voice that sings. The truth will never age. Willie Nelson matters. Because he refused to pretend. He didn't hide his past. He didn't sugarcoat life. He sang it loud, clear, and beautiful. And in doing so, he gave voice to millions who felt invisible. The last word. The man who never left. Willie Nelson may one day die, but he will never really leave. He lives in the strum of trigger on a back porch, the silence before the final note of Always on My Mind, the tears of a fan, hearing on the road again for the first time, the strength of a man who sings his songs while missing someone he loves. He was not just a singer. He was a witness to love, to loss, to survival, and as long as there is a heart that breaks. A farmer tilling the soil, or a song that needs to be sung. Willie Nelson will still be there, not in flesh, not in time, but in sound, and that is immortality. The anatomy of a voice. The science and soul of Willie's singing. Willie Nelson's voice is not classically beautiful. It isn't smooth or powerful. But it is emotionally transcendent, a sound shaped by time, smoke, heartbreak, and wisdom. His baritone, thin and nasal, defies conventional standards of vocal excellence. Yet it carries an unmatched depth of feeling. Scientists and vocal coaches have studied his phrasing for decades, noting how he manipulates time, pitch, and breath to create intimacy. Key characteristics: rhythmic freedom. Willie doesn't sing on the beat, he sings around it, like a jazz improviser. He'll delay a word, stretch a vowel, or pause mid-phrase to heighten emotion. Vocal texture: his voice has a weathered quality, cracks, breathiness, and subtle tremors that make it feel human. Not manufactured, dynamic restraint. He rarely raises his voice. Instead, he draws listeners in with quiet intensity, making sorrow feel personal. Emotional intelligence: every inflection serves the story. There are no empty notes, in blue eyes crying in the rain. He sings the line, "I hate to love you so much," not with anger, but with resignation, a man who knows he'll keep loving despite the pain. This wasn't technique. It was truth. And that's what made him one of the greatest vocal storytellers in history. The songwriter's soul. Poetry in simplicity. Willie Nelson didn't just perform songs, he wrote some of the most enduring lyrics in American music. His genius lay in economy. He didn't need metaphors or grand declarations. He told stories with simple, direct lines that cut to the soul. Take Crazy. I'm crazy for trying and crazy for crying. It's not just a love song. It's a confession of emotional helplessness. Or On the Road Again. I want to wake up in a city that never sleeps. A celebration of movement, loneliness, and freedom all in one line. Or Funny How Time Slips Away. I've made up my mind, it's better to be lonely. A lie we tell ourselves when love slips away. Nelson didn't write to impress. He wrote to bear witness, and in doing so, he gave voice to millions who had never been heard. The Bakersfield and Outlaw. Sounds: Nelson's musical identity, though born in Texas. Willie Nelson helped shape two revolutionary country movements, the Bakersfield sound and outlaw country. He admired Buck Owens and Merle Haggard for rejecting Nashville's polished production in favor of raw, guitar-driven honky-tonk. When he returned to Texas in the 1970s, he brought that spirit with him, but he went further. At Armadillo World headquarters in Austin, he fused country with rock, folk, blues, and psychedelic influences. He played alongside Janis Joplin, Jerry Jeff Walker, and Chris Christopherson, creating a new genre, progressive country. His 1973 album Shotgun Willie marked the shift. Looser, grittier, more personal. Then came Red-Headed Stranger, 1975, which stripped country music down to its bones. Just voice, guitar, and silence. This wasn't rebellion for shock value. It was artistic liberation, a return to authenticity in an age of artifice. And in doing so, he redefined what country music could be. The guitar that spoke. The legend of Trigger. No instrument in country music is more iconic than Trigger. Willie Nelson's battered Martin N20 classical guitar, purchased in 1969 for $750 at a pawn shop in Houston. Trigger has been with him through every major moment of his career. It's been repaired countless times, neck cracks, body patches, worn frets, but Willie refuses to replace it. Why? Because it sounds like home. Trigger's tone is warm, slightly nasal, and perfectly matched to Willie's voice. Over the decades, it has developed a unique character, each dent, scratch, and repair adding to its soul. Willie once said, "Trigger doesn't play me. I play with him. He treats the guitar like a living thing, talking to it, sleeping with it, even taking it to the vet when it needed repairs." In 2014, the Country Music Hall of Fame enshrined Trigger as a national treasure. Scratches, duct tape, and all, it stands not just as an instrument, but as a symbol of endurance, loyalty, and imperfection. The touring machine. Life on the road. Willie Nelson didn't just tour, he lived on the road. For over 6 decades, He performed nearly 150 shows a year, earning the nickname the hardest-working man in country music. His band, family, has remained remarkably stable. Paul, English drummer and lifelong friend, who passed in 2020. Bobbie Nelson, his sister and pianist, who played with him for over 50 years until her death in 2022. Micah Rayer, bassist and musical director, Mickey. Raphael, harmonica player since 1973. Their chemistry was telepathic, tight, intuitive, and full of joy. Willie didn't fly commercial. He traveled on Honeysuckle Rose, his private tour bus, and later his private plane. Named after one of his early hits, he once said, "Home is wherever I'm playing tonight," and fans believed him. The final years, a warrior to the end even in his 90s. Willie refused to retire in 2018. At age 85, he released Last Man Standing, an album reflecting on mortality and survival. In 2019, Ride Me Back Home explored themes of aging, animals, and legacy. In 2022, A Beautiful Time, released when he was 89's, showcased his undiminished creativity. In 2023, he toured with his sons Lucas and Micah, performing classics and new songs under the stars. He faced health issues, Massima, hip surgery, heart treatment, but kept going. When asked why, he said, "I don't know how to stop." He didn't make music to be remembered. He made it because he had to. And in doing so, he became immortal. The legacy, why Willie Nelson will never fade, because truth is timeless, because the working man still exists, because a voice that sings from the soul will never fade. Willie mattered because he spoke for the voiceless, the farmer, the addict, the lover, the wanderer. He didn't glorify poverty. He didn't romanticize prison. He just told the truth. His music wasn't escapism. It was connection. And in a world of curated images and manufactured stars, that's revolutionary. The final reflection. The man who sang the truth, Willie Nelson, may one day die, but he will never really leave. He lives in the strum of trigger on a back porch, the silence before the final note of angel flying too close to the ground, the tears of a fan hearing Yesterday When I Was Young for the first time, the strength of a man who sings his songs while missing someone he loves. He was not a saint. He was a sinner, and that's why we love him. So here's to Willie Nelson, outlaw who changed the game, the poet who stayed real, the man who sang like a storm and lived like a legend. And as long as there is a guitar, a highway, or a heart that refuses to be tamed, Willie Nelson will still be singing.